Welcome back to The Secrets to Kumihimo. I'm Elaine. I'm a jewelry designer here at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Today we're going to be adding some sparkle to your braids. We're going to be making a beautiful 8-strand Kumihimo bracelet with beads and crystals. It's an elegant twist on a classic braid, and it's a lot easier than it looks. So come on and let's get started, and let's add some shine to your Kumihimo.
Get our email newsletter for beading news, sale announcements, new product announcements, and more. Link is in the description below.
This bracelet starts out with an 8-strand round braid. But before we begin, let me show you the supplies you're going to need to make this bracelet. Of course, we have our Kumihimo disc, Kumihimo weight, some fray lock glue, and I'm going to show you what to do with that. I have some bicones in a couple different colors, some seed beads, glue-in magnetic clasp, a seal-on cord. I have some E6000 glue with toothpicks, a pair of scissors, and a couple of Q-tips to clean up with some alcohol later. Okay, so the first step I'm going to do in this bracelet is prepare my cords. So I have some seal-on cord here, and I'm making a bracelet that's an average size 7 inches. So 40 inches is going to give me plenty enough cord to work with. So I'm going to cut 8 strands of those, and then I'm going to put it in my Kumihimo disc here, and I tied overhand knot and I slipped on a Kumihimo weight. And the next thing I'm going to do is prep the ends with some E6000 fray lock. I'm going to put fray lock on the ends of these cords, and I'm going to let them dry completely, and then I'm going to snip it. And what it does, it makes a really fine, nice needle point, sharp end that makes stringing the beads and crystals a lot easier. And I have one that's already done, so I'm going to cut to that and show you. I already strung 1 strand, and I'm going to bring you up to show you my pattern here. So what I did was 12, 12, and 12, and that gives you a nice pattern. So I did 12 seed beads, and then 12 bicones, and another 12 seed beads. So the seed beads on the both ends are the same seed beads. Now, the bicones in the middle, that's what's going to give you your beautiful spiral design that's in the center of your bracelet. Now, you can customize this and choose gemstones, fire polish beads, any type of beads and crystals that you like, because anything that you customize it will just change the look of the bracelet and really become your own. Okay, I'm going to continue stringing the other 7 strands, and we'll be back to show you exactly how I place it on the disc. All right, so now I have all my cords with the beads and the crystals on, and with our huggy spools, and then again attached with the Kumihimo weight with it down the center of my disc. So what I need to show you to create that spiral pattern is I have the same colors on the top and on the bottom, and on the side. So that's going to create that spiral effect, all right? But you could do whatever you'd like to customize your own colors. Okay, so I have my 8 strands positioned here. I have the top in between strings 32 and 1, and you can see the dots for like right in the middle, so that's a good guideline. And then we're doing the same thing on the sides and on the bottom. So you see 8 and 9, 16 and 17, and 24 and 25. But don't get hooked on the numbers, because as we're rotating the wheel, those numbers are going to change. This is just our starting point. And I'm also using our logo as a starting point because we're going to go in cycles, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I wanted to show you the beads that we have attached. So I have my 12 seed beads with my 12 bicones in the center, and I have my light colors at the top and on the bottom of the wheel down here, and then I have my light chrome on the sides. So that's going to indicate the pattern that it's going to make later on when the bicones are in the center. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off exactly the way we did in the 8 strands. So it's just, we're going to do a cycle. And why I'm saying a cycle is I'm going to go through all of the strands, and then I'm going to make sure that the logo's somewhat at the top, and that'll be like a full cycle. And I'm going to do 7 of these just to get about 1 inch or so of tail that we're going to need for the clasp. Okay, so we're going to start the same way we did the 8 strand round, and it's going to go bottom up to the top, and then we're going to go top to bottom. So I just moved the bottom strands up to the top and the top to the bottom on the those. And then we're going to go counterclockwise. And we're going to do the same thing. Bottom to top, top to bottom, rotate counterclockwise. And the key to this is being very patient and making sure all your strands are nice and tight. The tighter that you keep these, the nicer and neat the bracelet's going to turn out in the end. So we're going to go bottom to top, top to bottom, rotate a turn. And then just try to remember to keep all your strings kind of neat while you're doing this. Bottom to top, top to bottom, rotate. Okay, now here you see that I have kind of the logo at the top. It's not quite in 31 and 32 and 1, but we're still at the top. So that's one whole cycle that I did. We're going to do 7 of these cycles where I get the logo somewhat at the top to create that inch. So I'm going to keep going and create that. And after we do that, I'll come back. So I finished the top cycle here, and I want to show you I got about an inch right there from my tail. And then we're going to continue on our cycle. But before we take the top cord and drop it to the bottom, we are now going to drop a seed bead. So we're going to take a seed bead and just make sure we only grab one. Whoops, see, there was 2. And make sure you only want to grab one. And you want to make sure that it drops down below into that little hole. And you're going to go underneath this cord that's on the right. So you're going to make sure that that's in there before you put it down in your bottom slot. So that's where you want the bead to lay. And then now we're going to do our rotation counterclockwise. Now we're going to do the same thing. Take this, take one bead, seed bead, make sure it's underneath, and go at the top. All right. And then we're going to take it and then drop another seed bead and down to the bottom. And then rotate, pull from the bottom, grab a seed bead, go at the top. And at this point, you just want to make sure all your beads are falling in line and underneath the cords. So take your time when doing this. Top, go down, make sure that bead's underneath that cord right there, keeping all other cords nice and tight, and rotate. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this and continuing dropping these seed beads, and I'm going to come back just before we start dropping the bicones. All right, I just dropped my last seed bead, so I want to show you the progress of what it looks like when all the seed beads are intact. Okay, so now we're going to start dropping our bicones. Okay, and I just want to remind you that the bicone's just a little bit different in size than your seed bead, so always remember also to keep it tight. So we're going to drop our first bicone, and it's going to be just the same as our seed beads, but make sure it's going to be nice and tight in there because it is a little bit bigger than the seed bead. So you want to make sure that that stays in there. Okay. And then we're going to do our counterclockwise and go into the seed bead or bicone, sorry, and make sure that's nice and tight. And then we're going to drop our next bicone underneath, making that nice and tight. Counterclockwise. And then we're going to drop our next bicone. And we're just going to keep doing this until I finish dropping all of our bicones. And then I'm going to continue, and it's going to go right back into dropping seed beads. So I'm going to just keep doing this until I'm almost out of seed beads, and then we'll come back. All right, so I dropped my last seed bead, and I'm going to just show you the progress that I did here with all the bicones and the seed beads. And what I'm going to end up doing now is continue, and I'm going to do 7 more rotations to get that inch. And then I will come back and I'll show you how to finish that off. Okay, I went ahead and did my 7 cycles to create that inch of tail, so we have something to put into the clasp. And at this point, I also took off the huggy spools. So it was, the strings are now getting shorter. So and it's easier to do. So I'm going to just finish off this cycle. And then we'll just do one more for safe measure and make sure everything's nice and tight. And then we will tie it off. So I'm going to finish this just by doing an overhand knot. Okay. So now it's really nice and tight. I'm going to take them off the wheel. Okay. So now we're going to just do an overhand knot. The Ceylon cord is very, very thin and slippery, so it's kind of hard to get that knot, but there we go. That's what I want. Doesn't have to be super neat because we're going to end up gluing it, but I just don't want that braid to come apart. All right. And then I have here about 12 inches of cord. And what I want to do is I'm going to come and tie a surgeon's knot right up to the close of the bead at the end of the necklace. And why I'm doing this is I'm going to wrap around that braid that we did, because being that the Ceylon cord is thin, I don't want this cord to slip out of the magnetic clasp. So I did overhand knot here. Then I'm going to do a surgeon's knot. Just like over and over. And we're just going to tie that where it's secure. Okay. Then I'm going to just take one end of the cords and I'm going to slowly wrap. So you want to measure how much you're going to wrap according to the inside of your magnetic clasp. And like I said, this is going to keep it from slipping out once we glue it in. So you want to kind of gauge. So the end of the clasp ends right about where my fingernail is with that thing. So you don't want to have too much more than that space. So I'm just about there. So I want probably one more, but then I'm going to go back in the other direction so it's nice and thick. And then when I get to the end again, I'm just going to take that and do an overhand knot again. And then we could finish it off with the surgeon's knot. Okay. So you could see the difference of me beefing the knot up here as opposed to the regular braid. See, and then again, I put it the length of what I want to fit into my magnetic clasp. And that's the part that we're going to glue in. Okay. So now I did that. We're going to trim this. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some glue, E6000 glue on this because I don't want the knot to go anywhere. And I'm just going to let that dry just for a few minutes. And then I'm going to snip it and put the cap on. Okay, so I've put part of the magnetic clasp on this side. And I just find it easier to put them on separately when it's a magnetic clasp because they're really strong magnets. So I find it easier to put on one at a time. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I did it on this end. Again, we have our little wraps around our braid. And so at this point, after the glue is dried, we're going to snip. And get that part off, okay? And then I'm going to take our little magnetic clasp, I'm going to have it upside down, and I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to put a little in my tray because I'm going to need quite a bit to go into our magnetic clasp. Okay, so I'm going to take a whole bunch on my toothpick here and I'm going to just put it inside my clasp here. Now don't worry about getting it all on the side because I do have Q-tips with alcohol on it, okay? And then I'm going to put that down. And then we're going to put this on. And we're going to twist it. And just before it dries, we want to make sure it's aligned with our other one. Okay, so that's kind of where I want it to be, okay? And there we go. We're going to let that dry. And there you have it, this beautiful 8-strand bracelet with beads and crystals. It's a beautiful way to add texture and shine to your jewelry. In our next Kumihimo video, we're going to show you some more advanced techniques. Until then, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter. Happy braiding!